Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here. Bring you guys another fantasy football video. This one I'm going to be going over my quarterback auction values, going through my top 10 quarterbacks in the order that I would be drafting them, and sort of going over how much you guys should expect to be paying for them in auction drafts this season, along with how much I would personally be willing to pay for them. Really fun making these videos. I just finished up going through and just sort of compiling how much we should expect to be paying for every single player in the NFL, how much I'm willing to pay for all of them as well. So I'll make sure that I update that. Upload that to my website, and you guys should have that available to you guys as a downloadable Excel file. So you guys can take a look at those as well. It's always super fun doing this. I'll be doing this video for the quarterback position. I'll also be following it up with videos on the running back, wide receiver, and tight end positions. Just sort of going over just what general players I find are values and what ones I don't. And then as we get further on into the offseason, we get some more robust average draft positions and more robust auction values on different platforms. I will be doing some platform comparisons as well, letting you guys know who the best values are on each different platform as well. So always super fun doing these. I know you guys love the auction content that we put out here, so trying to give you guys as much of that as possible. So yeah, appreciate you guys, and yeah, let's just get into it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Starting things off with my quarterback one this season is going to be Josh Allen. No surprise here. He's also got an ADP of quarterback one. He's going as the 16th player off the board overall. I'm pulling my average draft positions from Fantasy Pros, sorting by the PPR format. So if you want to cross-reference that, that's where I'm pulling these from as well. But that's where those ADPs are coming from. At this ADP, you would anticipate the quarterback one costing you roughly 25 to 30% of your auction budget. So that's an extremely high price tag for a quarterback. My personal maximum recommended bid is going to be just over 20%. I put 22% here. That puts him at like a $44 price tag if you're in a $200 auction league. And that is a really high price tag to be paying for Josh Allen. That puts him as like a late third round value. And I think that's a good point price tag for me to be willing to do that. I don't think it's a very good value when we're looking at drafting him like 16th overall in a snake draft or spending like that quarter to 30% of your budget. That's just too much for me. But we know Josh Allen is fantastic. There are some minor concerns just with the weapons he's got around him. We could potentially see this offense take a small step back. And on top of that, the quarterback class this year is super deep. I'm going to go through my top 10 guys, and all of these guys are guys that I'd be excited about having as my quarterback one going into week one. And for that reason, I don't think it makes sense to drop too much money on a quarterback, no matter how great they are. I don't think the drop off is that high as we even go down to the quarterback 10. And having to spend that much to get Josh Allen here, I don't think it's necessarily going to pay off. So I think 22% is fair. It might even be a little bit high. I would maybe feel even a little bit uncomfortable there, but I think that's a fair price tag to be paying for Josh Allen. He's obviously a stud, and he'll probably be the quarterback one in the season. Next up, we've got my quarterback two. It's going to be Jaylen Herz. Again, not a shocker here. He's currently being drafted as the second quarterback off the board, going 25th overall, so a little bit more reasonable in terms of where his ADP is. At this ADP, you would expect Hertz costing you roughly 25% of your budget, so about a 5% drop. We're seeing that of Josh Allen, and my personal max recommendation is going to be 20% here, just a little bit less than Josh Allen. I think he's a lot safer of a draft pick than Josh Allen. We know that his weapons are much better. This is an offense that we saw perform really poorly last year, honestly, and Hertz was still fantastic. Hertz honestly has got a shot to potentially lead the league in rushing touchdowns. They use him that frequently near the goal line, and we know he's obviously special, but I don't necessarily think he's got the same upside that a guy like Josh Allen does. But if you're finding yourself in a spot where you just want a rock solid QB1, probably going to guarantee yourself at least a top 5 season out of Hertz. I think he's a really safe draft pick, and I think 20%, again, maybe on a little bit of the high side, but just wanted to make it possible for you guys to potentially be getting him. I don't want to be avoiding Jaylen Hertz. It's just that I generally don't like spending that much of my draft capital on a quarterback, especially early on in a draft when you're doing that. I think it kind of hamstrings you later on. So I think 20% is a fair price tag. That really is a firm recommendation. I wouldn't go any higher than that, and I would honestly be more comfortable getting some of the guys later at lower price tags anyway. Next up, we've got my quarterback three. That's going to be CJ Stroud, currently being drafted as the 5th quarterback off the board, going 44th overall. And at this ADP, you would anticipate Stroud costing you roughly 12% of your budget. So we've got the first player here that I'm going to say is actually at a value where he's being drafted. I'm recommending that you spend up to 15% of your budget to get CJ Stroud. Even that's still kind of on the high end, but I just think the ceiling here for CJ Stroud is so immense that I do think it makes a lot of sense to at least target him in some capacity. You will find that each of the next 2 quarterbacks I discuss as well, they're going to have the same max recommended bid. I've got 3 tier 2 quarterbacks here, and I really don't think there's a whole lot separating any of those 3. So for me, it's just if you want to target a tier 2 quarterback, it'd be whichever one of them you can get cheaper. But Stroud is obviously special. There is obviously a world where things don't necessarily work out for him just because he is not the most mobile of quarterbacks. You're going to need the touchdown numbers to improve. And I'm personally expecting that to, obviously. That's why I've got him as my quarterback 3. I don't mind drafting him at all, but I wouldn't put yourself in a spot where you're going to get into a bidding war. Don't feel like you need to go up to a 20-25% bid to get CJ Stroud. In general, I think you can maybe get him at a little bit of a value, get him for less than some of the other guys that are going in the top 5, and that's where I want him. But I wouldn't be looking to pay up. It's like a 25% price tag. It's going to be too much. Up next, we've got my quarterback 4, Lamar Jackson, currently being drafted as the quarterback 4 and going 40th overall. At this ADP, you would anticipate him costing you basically 15% of your budget, and that's exactly what I'm recommending as a max recommended bid here. He's clearly elite. The issue really is just that he does seem to disappear from week to week. There will be a couple week stretches over the course of the season where he probably just doesn't put up monster numbers, and that is a little bit concerning out of your quarterback 1, especially spending this much on him. And there is a little bit of concern again here that Derrick Henry is back in town now for Baltimore. We could see Henry put up a spike touchdown season, and that could negatively impact Lamar. But I do think Lamar is appropriately priced. I don't mind paying what he's going for right now, and I think it's worth having some exposure to him just because of how special he is. Up next, we've got Anthony Richardson, my quarterback 5 right now, currently being drafted as the quarterback 6, going 48th overall. And at this ADP, you should be expecting to spend roughly 10% of your budget on Richardson, and I'm actually willing to allow you guys to go up to 15% on him. And this one really is just all about upside. I think of all the quarterbacks I've talked about, including Josh Allen, I think Richardson might have the highest ceiling of all of these players. He could easily he's got the body, the talent to put up like a Cam Newton MVP season. Obviously, that's a really high bar that I'm setting here for him. He does probably have the lowest floor of all these guys as well, so it's super risky. I would definitely want to be pairing him with a late round guy like Jared Goff, to one of these quarterbacks you're going to feel confident in and is also free. So I think you definitely want to do that if you get Richardson, but the upside's there. I think he's definitely worth the price tag, and I could see myself with quite a bit of him because he is actually a pretty good value right now, only costing you 10% of your budget. I think it's definitely worth doing, and I'm willing to go even a little bit higher than that. Next, we've got Jordan Love, my quarterback 6, currently being drafted as the quarterback 8, going 60th overall. And at this ADP, you'd expect to be spending roughly 6% of your budget on Jordan Love. And my max recommended bid here is actually really close to that. It was 7%. I came up with these before I even looked at how much you'd be expecting to pay. So really funny how closely that lined up. But there are just a lot of quarterbacks that I find fall in the same tier here. The next 4 quarterbacks I'm going to talk about, along with Jordan Love here, make up a 5 quarterback tier that I'm going to call the tier 3 of the quarterback position. Love is my favorite one of these 3 guys, but there really isn't a whole lot to differentiate him from the rest of the tier. So I think what's going to end up happening, at least for me personally, is I'm just going to target this entire tier of quarterbacks, and whichever one I end up getting for a reasonable price tag is going to be the one that I'm happy with and end up with on my roster. So I love Love at cost tier. I do think I'm going to end up with one of these tier 3 quarterbacks, and I'm definitely targeting him at his ADP or auction value right now. Next, we've got my quarterback 7, currently going as the quarterback 10 overall, and that's going to be Kyler Murray. This ADP, you would expect to be spending roughly 4% of your budget on Murray, so that is a nice bit of a dip between what we were seeing with Jordan Love, who is expected to cost you roughly 6%. I'm willing to spend up to 7% on Kyler Murray here. I think all the same thing applies as Jordan Love. He's a really talented player. We don't exactly know what the ceiling is going to be for him this season, and there are some red flags. Like with Jordan Love, the red flag is maybe he doesn't put together a really great year 2 after coming out really year 1. For Kyler, it's just all about injury and health concerns, but he's going to slot in as one of my favorite values here just because he's so cheap. Being drafted as the quarterback 10, I got him 3 spots ahead of ADP. I think he's still in that same tier of these guys, and normally you find that if you've got a bunch of players in the same tier, you kind of want to get the cheapest one of them. I think Kyler's going to be that, so I do really like Kyler this season. I think I'm going to end up with a lot of him in my drafts this year. Next, we've got Patrick Mahomes. No, I didn't forget about him. He comes into this video and my rankings as my quarterback 8, currently being drafted as the quarterback 3, going 33rd overall. And at that ADP, you expect to be paying roughly 20% of your budget on Mahomes, and I just can't do that. My max recommended bid is still 7% here for Mahomes, and he actually just slots in as one of the worst values in auction drafts for me. And I just don't see myself really ending up with any exposure. He finished as the quarterback 8 last season. Let's not pretend I'm crazy for having him here. This is certainly within the range of outcomes. There's no reason to really expect there to be a huge change from last season either. Like, this is going to be a relatively run-first offense. They've got bad weapons outside of Travis Kelce, who's a year older, and they've got a really good defense. And there's no reason to really anticipate them needing to score a lot of points to win games. And there just really isn't anything that separates Mahomes from guys like Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, the 4 other guys that I'm going to have in this tier. He's not the most mobile of quarterbacks. He's not going to end up with 600 rushing yards. So you can't give him that argument. And you're going to need a really spiked touchdown season for him to end up cracking that top 3 ADP. he's the most talented quarterback in the NFL. He's the best quarterback in the NFL, but in fantasy, it's just not going to work for me this season. I don't see myself drafting any Patrick Mahomes. Next is my quarterback 9. We've got Dak Prescott also currently being drafted as the quarterback 9. At this ADP, you'd expect to be spending roughly 5% of your budget on Dak, and my max recommended bid here is going to be 6%, just a tiny bit less than what I'd be spending on Jordan Love, Kyler, or Patrick Mahomes. I think he's just a little bit worse, but it's not enough for me to call that a tier break. He just offers a little bit less on the ground than those guys. He's got a little bit worse weapons, given that he really only has CeeDee Lamb, but he's going to throw the ball a ton this season. They don't have the running backs in their backfield to be a run-first team. They're going to air it out, and CeeDee Lamb and him are going to put up another monster season, and I could see myself ending up with quite a bit of Dak this year as well. He's someone that I'm certainly going to be targeting. Again, he falls into that same tier quarterback that I'm probably going to be just really trying to hammer in drafts this year, and if he ends up being the one who comes to me for the cheapest, he'll be the one that I get on my roster. And lastly, the last quarterback we'll talk about today is going to be Joe Burrow, currently being drafted as the quarterback 7. Comes in as my quarterback 10, and at this ADP, you would expect Burrow to cost you roughly 8% of your budget. My max recommended bid is going to be 6%, so a little bit below that, but the issue here is really just that I think that he's a little bit riskier than all the other quarterbacks in this same tier, and I think he's got the same ceiling as those guys as well, so I just think he's kind of the worst option in tier 3 because we've seen him get injured and suffer significant injuries 2 of his 4 years in the NFL. His receiving core continues to get banged up as well, and I just can't see it really being something that I'm necessarily targeting, but I could also see Burrow sort of slipping, going for a little bit cheaper than some of the other quarterbacks around him, and I think I'll end up with a little bit of Burrow, but he's not someone that I'm necessarily targeting at cost. So that'll do it for the quarterback auction draft values video. If there were any quarterbacks I didn't talk about, feel free to let me know in the comments. I can give you my max recommended bid there, and then I will be uploading the spreadsheet outlining my max recommended values for every single player that's getting drafted this season. So that'll be available to you guys soon as well. So stay tuned for that. I promise to get you guys that relatively soon. And if you want a specific player, again, you can just let me know in the comments. Next video I'll be going over the running back auction draft values. I think rather than just going 1 through 12 or 1 through 24 or whatever there, I'll probably just sort of pick some of my favorite and my least favorite values there, give you guys my anticipated costs, so maybe a tier breakdown as well. Then again, you guys can refer to this spreadsheet as well for some more information there. So going to be a lot of fun. We got 3 of these coming out. Should be coming out pretty quickly as well because most of the legwork behind it's done. So going to be a lot of fun, and super excited to keep it going. So if you guys want to make sure you don't miss any of that content, along with the several other videos we're going to put out every single week for the rest of the season, just make sure you're subscribed. I can continue to give you guys free content to help you guys win your leagues, and it's just going to be a lot of fun going from here. So appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you next time. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.